Oh, I think people can learn a lot about what we are trying to bring to the community of biohacking in the sense of scientifically backed information and creating a community of biohackers that rely not only on information, but on their fellow biohackers that are providing this content. There's so much information out there, Toby, that the mainstream has no idea about. And you and I were talking earlier about meeting at the conferences and everything. We met some incredibly gifted people with some of the information that they're and the technology that they're pushing that it sounds so futuristic, right? But Biohackers Magazine, we're trying to help get that message out there to more people so that we can serve the community better as a whole, because a lot of people don't know about the different options they have to treat their body. Now we're trying to push that narrative a little farther.
All right, welcome everyone to a new episode of the NeuroFlex podcast. I am your host, Toby Passman. I wanted to tell you guys a little about brain mapping. This is something that you guys may have heard of before. It's an electrical study of your brain activity. We're measuring 5 major brainwave frequencies, ranging from the slower brainwaves, delta, theta, alpha, and then some of the faster waves too, such as beta, high beta, and gamma brainwaves. These are all involved in different aspects of cognitive functioning. And if you have too low or too high level of some different brain waves, it can be linked to different dysregulated states. So with neurofeedback and some other neurotechnologies we use here at NeuroFlex, we're able to then use the brain map to guide us to regulate the brain activity to improve your overall cognitive performance and whatever your specific goals may be, whether that's improving your sleep, improving your mood, reducing stress. It's all kind of individualized based on what you want to gain out of training. So if you're in the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, that's something that we currently offer. Go ahead and check us out, www.neuroflex.com. That's NUROFLEX.com. You can also shoot me a DM at NeuroflexFlorida on Instagram. On to today's interview, we have a very special guest, Dallas McClain. Dallas is the co-founder and editor of Biohackers Update magazine. Born in the USA, Dallas is a passionate reader of personal development books and is a tennis enthusiast. He's the chief information officer and editor of Biohackers Update magazine and the co-founder. He holds a bachelor's degree in biological science, and he is currently living in Orlando, Florida with his wife and daughter, where he enjoys writing, sports, and nature hikes in his free time. So Dallas, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Toby. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So, we met at the Biohacking Congress, a conference in Miami a couple weekends ago, and I was really intrigued to learn about what you guys had going on with the Biohackers Update magazine. And I just wanted to see if you could tell me a little about kind of what spurred the original idea of wanting to do a biohacking magazine, and just tell me a little about how that came about.
Of course, yeah. So not to tell too long-winded of a story, but it started around 2019. I was living in Spain at the time, teaching English over there, and we were in Barcelona, and I was just looking for something to do on the side while I was teaching English, because there was sometimes some gaps of time windows that would open up in between classes, and I'm like, I want to be doing something else. So I just stumbled upon this opportunity of people posting about this Biohackers magazine idea, which was originally an idea held by a guy from Germany. And he saw that biohacking was growing and there was kind of like a need for some coverage, a lot of different media coverage and perspective on it. So we had this idea of the Biohackers Update magazine, and he needed someone that was more of a native English speaker to and familiar with some of the biological terminology into biohacking. So my resume kind of fit that, and I was brought on as the editor. And long story short, we launched our first issue at the end of that year, and it didn't go quite as planned with the exposure and everything. And with everything going on, I get everyone has their own problems. The founder basically said, I can't do this anymore. I need to devote more time to this. And we were like, okay. So a lot of people just left and stopped working on the company and everything. So there was only like 9 of us or something at the time, and it just came down to me and Arjun, or I should say Arjun and I, who he's based in India, and he was handling marketing, I was handling editing, and we're like, do we keep this going or not? Or we just let it die? And we decided, well, we already put some work into it. Let's just keep it going because it does seem like the need is there, right? It does seem like people got some sort of value out of just bringing those scientific articles and interesting biohacks to the forefront, right? Not just keeping it in a niche space, trying to bring it to more mainstream publication. So we decided to keep it going, and now we're on our 18th, 19th issue. It's been over 3 years now. We've been growing. We've added more people to our team. We have designers. We have additional editors for video and audio, and we're growing. We're a humble company, but we're determined. We're determined to make a difference in the world of health by offering a perspective for people and for readers and listeners to really take control of their health and the information that they're receiving, not just from their doctor, but maybe now they're looking at a magazine, they're saying, oh, I have this problem. Why don't I try this biohack first before doing something super invasive that might be life changing and cause some serious side effects, right? So that's what we're trying to stand for, is just like promoting good and scientifically backed articles that engage readers and listeners in a way that's not trying to sell people something. It's trying to just give back to the community that's so focused on their health and making themselves be a better person each and every day through optimization. That doesn't have to necessarily come through treatment-based medicine. Treatment-based medicine is great. Like of course, like we learn a lot and we need it in a lot of cases, but preventative medicine, in my opinion, is something that really got exposed during the pandemic of like what people need to do to prepare their health for all of these types of situations. And we have been trying to be at the forefront of that, bringing that to the community, really establishing a biohacking community.
Right. And no, I really like what you said there about, not trying to necessarily sell anything or be super salesy, because I feel like the biohacking community, can definitely lean that way. Just, I mean, I think inherently with, the kind of supplements and different high tech gadgets, it can get very pricey, but it's like,
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of the most, essential and, transformative biohacks are oftentimes very cheap, if not free. Things like getting sunlight, I mean, taking vitamin D, just eating a clean diet. I mean, these things aren't necessarily going to break the bank, but I like the point that you brought up there, because I think that can be a problem in the field.
You're so right. It's an easy field where people can kind of push their product biasly, maybe without knowing it exactly, but because it's an unknown era and people are still learning a lot about the science and studies and clinical trials behind some of the stuff, it's easy to just say, this is the price and this is what it does. And here's a little bit of research on it. But we definitely are trying to remain unbiased. And like you said, a lot of people biohack and they don't even know they're biohacking. Biohack is still a relatively new term, but some people take only cold showers. Some people go for walks after dinner. Um, a lot of these fundamental things that we know are good for us kind of intrinsically, we just gravitate towards doing them, not knowing that we're taking control of our health through biohacking. Biohacking consists of two tiers really, and they kind of overlap in some ways, but there's the fundamental part that is like the roots of what keeps us rooted to our human nature and our human biology, and makes the best of that. And then there's the extensions, like the technological side of it, that acts as like extensions of our arms and legs and tools that we use as humans to make ourselves better. And then, of course, there's the overlap of combining those things. But we're trying to also keep it balanced where someone's not going too far down the technological side or too far away too far down the root side. We have to see the benefit of each side, and that's what biohacking is all about.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely a healthy perspective there, and one I tend to subscribe to. So what was your kind of introduction to biohacking, and how do you feel like it's kind of made an impact in your own life?
Well, that's a good question. I would say, I have to be honest, I did not know what biohacking was when I stumbled upon the opportunity. And then I slowly learned over time that, in a way, we're all biohacking. It's just how much, to an extent, are we biohacking, right? We're all, as humans, we all have that desire to be curious and to experiment with things and to see how things change when we change something. But some, of course, way more than others. For me, I didn't know what biohacking was, but I was doing a lot of biohacking through just trying to stay in shape and reading. I was reading a lot. I discovered personal development, and that was what really kind of brought me to even seeing that opportunity. Is just I wanted to always see life as an adventure and trying to learn and trying to build upon my skills. Not to necessarily make me a superhuman or superman or anything, but just to be able to fully optimize myself each and every day so that I can bring the best to the community. Because if I'm operating at my best and I'm being the best person I can be, I'm being the best father I can be, I'm being the best son I can be, I'm being the best brother, I'm being the best, community member, and helping the community as a whole. Because if I'm not, if I know I could be doing more, I also know that the community could be prospering more based on my service. I see myself as trying to just serve, instead of just trying to selfishly get ahead. Biohacking has a connotation where a lot of people want to say that it's selfish and it's egotistical. And maybe in some ways they're right, but I think deep down biohacking is more about the individual's importance of focusing on themselves in a disciplined way that helps them be able to become a person that they should be and that they were designed to be, and fulfill that vocation that makes the world a better place. Because they're optimally functioning, they're able to give their best and their best service to the world. So that's kind of my experience.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I feel like if people are not healing their best, whether that's like physically or mentally, it's like they're gonna perform at suboptimal levels, and with that mindset of doing whatever you can to like serve the community, be the best husband and son and brother, all the things you mentioned. It's like that is not necessarily going to happen if we're putting junk into our bodies, and
Hmm.
our bodies are kind of having to constantly try to overcome all these toxins and
Yeah,
setbacks.
for sure.
So I saw that you guys have definitely had some cool interviews. I saw you guys had Ben Greenfield on the show, or on
Hmm.
the in the magazine. Mark Devine, Reed Davis. Tell me
Yep.
about like what have been some of the most notable issues, or maybe interviews, as part of those issues that you've worked on so far.
Well, I guess a lot of the underlying themes that have been brought up in each of the interviews is the issue that we all face as human beings, to fall into complacency with a lot of what the world is giving to us and offering us. For example, all of the toxins that you just mentioned that are just floating inside our body or in our environment, and we don't even, take the time to become aware of a lot of that stuff. Awareness is the first step. When we become aware, you can either freak out or you can, start to take a disciplined approach to fix that. And that's what I noticed with a lot of the people I interviewed: Reed Davis, Ben Greenfield, Mark Devine, Victor, and Robert Slovak. All of these people have an approach of healing the body, but with a disciplined effort and a in a way that's like, how would I say this? A disciplined effort that's not going too far, that's not breaking your balance of your life, right? So it's like a incremental way of getting those toxins out of the body, or an incremental way of changing your habits so that before you know it, you're doing things that are, you know, a lot more helpful to your life and to those around you. And you're slowly getting away from those bad habits. So I think the underlying theme is that there's toxins, and there's a way that society is telling us to think and telling us to do things and telling us what to eat. And there's a lot of energy that we have to use to become aware of that, and then use that to make those disciplined choices and to step away from the masses, you know, which is hard a lot of times because the masses are a lot of times people that are very close to us, right? Our family, our close friends, and all of these people, they have influence over us. But when we become aware of the people that we need to become and step away from this complacency and comfort, we can kind of use that to reassure ourselves that we're doing what's best for us and we're doing what's best for the community by trying to take those steps to get those toxins out of our body and do the right choice, make the right choices to to serve. You know, that's what we're all here to do, in my opinion, is just to serve the fellow man. And we do that, you know, through taking care of ourselves too. We can't forget about self-care. It's important.
So yeah, it's interesting to think about. When I guess when I first became aware of biohacking, I probably in a way that a lot of people did through Dave Asprey and through Bulletproof Radio, and it was, I feel like, very much so the pushing like the peak performance in the sense of like accomplishing more, doing being able to work for longer hours, working smarter, like all these things that are very very important, very good, but not maybe necessarily as much as this sort of idea of like serving the community,
Mhm.
being the best person, best friend, best son, all these things that you're sort of talking about. So it's interesting. Do you sort of see that same kind of division too within like the kind of people who gravitate towards biohacking, where there's kind of like the people who are just like, just give me more energy to work harder, make more money. And then there's also like the people who are like, let me like live a balanced life and take care of myself and get rid of toxins, all the things we're talking about here.
Yeah, yeah, to an extent, you're right. There is those two different sectors of the biohacking industry. But I have to say, I think I've been fortunate, and a lot of the people I've spoken with and interviewed seem to have a very down to earth approach of just wanting to do their mission of serving their fellow man or their fellow community, the health industry, whatever you want to call it. And it's a very selfless way of promoting their product. You know, I know that you have to have advertising, you have to do this, and there's a lot of things you have to do to promote the message, but they are generally speaking from the heart, I think. And I'm very fortunate to be able to talk with them, because another theme that relays from all of them would be there's their understanding of, you know, what's true in the world, you know, what's the truth, and how how they approach that, how they use that to make their product a serviceable product for everyone. I think it was said by I want to say C.S. Lewis had a quote one time, and it was, if you look for truth, you can may find comfort in the end, but look for comfort, you won't get either comfort or truth. Only soft soap and wishful thinking to begin. And then in the end, I think you get despair. So it's like they're not looking for comfort. They're not looking for money, right? They're looking just to serve, and the money will come. Like if you're doing a valid service to the community, and you know are working hard at it, and you're keeping that end goal in mind just to serve, the money comes either way. Like it's going to happen. It's just a law of the universe. But if you're focused on the money, you're going to be looking to cut corners, and there's going to be corruptions and everything like that. And you're just looking for comfort. You're not interested in the truth. But all these guys I've been talking to, they're interested in getting their product out there because they truly believe in it, and they think it's the truth, and it's going to make us better people. So I'm very humbled to be able to even, talk with those people. It's been a great experience.
That's amazing that you found all those. I mean, that many people with that same kind of mission. I wanted to ask you about, so this was something I saw on your guys' website and something I also became aware of for the first time at that biohacking congress. And I was wondering if you could speak at all on light water, the deuterium depleted water. Um,
Yeah.
I thought that was a really interesting product, and just I didn't know really anything about deuterium depleted water. I don't think that's something that's ever been brought up by a guest on the show yet. So I'd just love if you could speak on that for a bit.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I'm sure they would, of course, do it much more justice than me, but so those guys are brilliant. Let me just start by saying that. And the deuterium depleted water is a lot of different ways to tackle talking about it. The first would just be from a historical standpoint of deuterium and its existence on Earth. So deuterium is another form of hydrogen. So hydrogen, when it's mixed with water, it's H2O, right? Two hydrogens, one oxygen. What happens is with deuterium, it's an unstable form of hydrogen, and it takes the place of one of those hydrogens for that water. And because it's a little heavier, that hydrogen, it causes issues in our ATP pump in our mitochondria, where it's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Because it's deuterium and it's heavier, the pump to make ATP doesn't function as well, and it results in more aging or less energy production. So that's kind of the whole mechanical breakdown there. But there's been a lot of theories as to, how deuterium ended up, significantly increasing in Earth's the environment. And if you look at studies of people that live close to glaciers or people that live close to really natural pure water, everything that they're consuming starts with that water, right? Even the meat and the plants and everything have just pure like H2O, good water, not heavy water, as they call it. Heavy water is deuterium. So because they're like constantly treating their mitochondrial pump in the best way that it was optimally designed for, they're not aging as rapidly. And you have people, the ratio to centenarians to the regular population is so crazy. Like it's really good compared to the westernized societies. So what they do is they found a way to make this water called light water. They call it because it's like almost like that glacier water. And there's a certain process that they use that I'm not going to go into because they could course design it better, but it's like a whole bunch of long like tubes, and they use like condensation and everything to make this water super pure water so that we can drink it, and slowly the concentration of the deuterium gets filtered out of our bodies and gets a little lower. I think optimal deuterium levels in our body is like 100 parts per million or something, but Victor, I think, said that the average human being has like 130 parts per million or something, or 140 or 50. So it does cause a lot of slowness in our movement, and it actually increases the aging process, invites more chronic disease because our body isn't functioning as properly as it could be. He used a good analogy. He's like, imagine you're super fit and you're ready and you've done everything you need to do to prepare for this 5K race or marathon race or whatever, and you're so excited. And then you start running, and then you step in gum, and the gum just slowly starts to like slow you down. It's like that's what drinking like constant deuterium water is like. And you're going to get that from almost all the water that you drink, unless you get it from a special source like a glacier or something like that. And they said that it relates back. A lot of biohacks relate back to deuterium depletion. When we go for runs, or we work out and we're sweating out a lot of that deuterium. When we're using a sauna and other things like that, we're sweating out a lot of that deuterium, but then we're replacing it with, heavy water in a lot of ways. So that's where they come in and say, this is one of the most ultimate biohacks, because you can just replace your water with light water, and you're not getting that deuterium back into your system. And even when you eat low carb diets don't have a lot of that heavy water in it. So you're eating like a lot more of those fresh foods. They don't have as much heavy water. So they say it all kind of runs full circle. But deuterium depleted water is super interesting. I have yet to try it. I've wanted to, but I have close friends that have tried it, and they say it is something very noticeable.
Very cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely a lesser known biohack, but I feel like definitely I could see. Seems like that could definitely grow a lot in kind of prominence.
Yeah.
What other sort of biohacks maybe that people might not be aware of that are kind of more fringe or more just maybe on the come up that you've become aware of, say in your process of doing a magazine.
Yeah, that's a good question. There's so many, man. One of our recent issues was about molecular hydrogen, and I'm not sure if anyone has heard of that, but it's crazy because it's like just this form of hydrogen, which is hydrogen is like the smallest element, right? And the first element on the periodic table of elements. So it's able to actually go straight into our cells and not have to go through the sodium potassium pump. So that's one thing of how crazy efficient that thing is able to be used, to basically just revitalize our cells. Um, so Tyler LeBaron, we did a featured cover on him, and he talks about molecular hydrogen and how they studied it and everything, and how it's able to really optimize the body to fight chronic disease and fight a lot of different symptoms that affect the body that people haven't really been able to see much progress with, even with pharmaceuticals. And I mean, it's crazy. Like the technology they have is usually you can inhale the hydrogen gas as a gas, or they make these tablets and you drop it in water and it like combines with the water, but you're still drinking like pure molecular hydrogen. And he's like, it's crazy because you'll drink it and then a minute or two later, you automatically just feel like refreshed. You feel a little bit more energized because it just enhances ATP production so much in such a natural way that our mitochondria are like, this is what we were pretty much designed to run off of. It's like just pure hydrogen. It kind of relates a little bit back to light water thing. Another one, if you have time, is this guy I met, Christian Drapeau, in at the Biohacking conference in LA in September. He runs a company called Stemregen, and his company is focused on harnessing the benefits of stem cells from the body. So stem cells are released from the bone marrow. Uh, but as soon as we turn 30, the release of the stem cells from the bone marrow into the bloodstream goes down drastically because of aging and a lot of things. But we have these stem cells naturally within us. And everyone knows that stem cells, can become almost any type of cell to help facilitate the healing process of the body. So if you have a lot of stress on your brain, maybe your bone marrow can release some stem cells and they go to the brain through a whole process and start to heal that area. So he has figured out, and there's actually a lot of plant compounds from like aloe vera, a few other ones like some sea berries, where they found that these compounds actually promote the release of stem cells naturally from our bone marrow to heal the body. And they've done studies with rats and even clinical trials and everything where the healing rate is just through the roof in terms of the difference. Like people that have like joint pain or like, super muscular tightness or a lot of different things. People that had severe burns on their faces, third-degree burns, they took this stuff and they were able to see almost night and day difference in like 30 days of like just she had normal skin. So it was really quite astounding. But basically it just taps into the natural healing process of the body. It's called Stimrogen. You take like 2 pills a day, and it's all these extracts from plants that are able to just promote the healthy natural release of stem cells from our bone marrow, which we have so many of. It's just that that whole process gets kind of stinted after we turn 30. So that's another interesting one.
Right, right. And especially right now, just with the sort of, difficulty to access, getting stem cell injections, just both with like the cost along with just the legal regulatory status in
Yeah.
different countries, it makes sense to find ways to kind of trigger your body's own production, which sounds like that kind of product is able to do.
Yeah, it's a brilliant article too. It's going to be in our next issue in December, so be on the lookout for that.
Sweet. And yeah, in terms of like other things like coming up, like what other sort of projects are you guys planning for the future? Anything upcoming that we can look forward to?
Well, yeah, of course. We always have our podcast where we're interviewing guests and people that are featured on the cover. If you're more of a listener, you can go there to check us out and listen instead of reading the magazine. But we also we cover different events around the country. Like for example, we're going to the next Biohacking Congress in let's see, Austin in February. I think we're also going to an event in Miami called the Ultimate Wellness Event at the Faena Hotels, January 13th. So we try to, stay at those conferences and congresses because we feel like the power of just being in person and everything and meeting people is, one of those things that you're just never going to get close to if you're online and everything. So we also have some ideas coming out that I can only speak high level about, but we want to make the magazine a lot more interactive. So interactive in the sense where you can almost be inside the articles and the content and the imagery, the graphics and everything, and make it more, because that's where the world is going, it seems like, is a lot more virtual reality type things. Um, People want to always like, have that technological aid with them whenever they're doing those things. So we're thinking about integrating that. Um, there's always exciting things in the pipeline. I can just say that we're super thrilled to be pushing a magazine out almost every month, month and a half, podcast every month. And we also have with our partner, Cyborg Gains Media, who is John Falakawa, who you met, Toby, there. He's a brilliant guy, and he does a podcast as well called No Plan B Podcast on his platform. Um, and that podcast is just so insightful. But going beyond that, the stuff that he does and the things that he is able to do with his body, I think he's just over 50, but he's crazy in shape. He does the biohacking, and he also is just a really down to earth, insightful guy that is always keeping us ahead of the trend. So with that, I'll just say there's stuff coming out in the next year, so be on the lookout.
Perfect. And for people who are interested in kind of keeping up to date and connecting with you and the magazine, where can people find you guys at?
Yeah, of course. So biohackersmagazine .com is probably the simplest way on our website there. We also have Instagram, Biohackers Magazine. Um, the podcast is embedded into our website, but it's also on Spotify, Biohackers Magazine. And then if you're interested in connecting with my partner, John Falakara, it's Cyborg Gains on Instagram. And then my personal Instagram is Gates of Growth. So if you're interested in that, feel free to message us. We're happy to work with you and see what you guys have to say or contribute. And we're excited about collaborating.
Perfect. We'll certainly include links to all those that you mentioned down in the show notes. And for those of you guys who enjoyed the conversation today, just want to let you guys know you can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or most other major audio streaming platforms. If you prefer the full episode to watch the video episode, you can check us out on Neuroflex on YouTube. The channel is Neuroflex, N-U-R-O-F-L-E-X. And if you guys have any questions, comments, suggestions for people that you'd like to see on the show in future episodes, I'd love to hear some input. Shoot me an email, toby@neuroflex.com. You can also DM me at NeuroflexFlorida. Dallas, I wanted to just thank you so much for coming on the show today and just sharing all your knowledge and expertise with us.
Thank you very much, Toby. I'm humbled to be on here, and it's been a great pleasure. Hope to do it again sometime.
Absolutely.